So before we start drawing, let's make sure that we are sufficiently prepared. So one thing we need to know how to do is toggle between the black and white arrow tools. So right now I'm using the black arrow tool. It can also be found up here in the tool panel, but right next to that is the white arrow tool. The difference between these two is the black arrow tool selects whole objects or entire objects, whereas the white arrow tool selects individual segments and points. So I want to get really handy with using the shortcuts for each one of these. If you can think of the letter V as an arrow, then you can kind of see if I want to use my black arrow, I use the V key, which looks like an arrow. And if I want to use the white arrow, I use the A key, which is also kind of shaped like an arrow. Learn how to toggle back and forth between those. Maybe do that a few times just so you know how to access each one of those. The other thing we want to pay attention to is our stroke and fill. So that's this part of our tool panel, which can be found right over here. Okay, so the difference between the stroke and the fill. So I have an object right here. This is a square. A stroke is simply outlining the path. And I can actually change that up here in the control panel. So right now I have what's called a stroke weight of 5 points or 5.7 points. And I can go up and down on the weight of the stroke to change how thick it is. A fill, on the other hand, so this is the same shape or same path, but instead of outlining the path, it's simply filling it in. So that's the main difference between fill and stroke. You can have an object that has a stroke right here and a fill. The same way you can have a filled object with a stroke. You can also switch the two. So right now I've selected my stroke, and if I hit Shift X, I can switch between the stroke and the fill. So right now I have my stroke activated, and it looks like I don't have a fill. Now, if I want to switch which one is activated, I can hit the X key, and now I see that my fill is activated, and it's crossed out, so it's no fill. Usually when you start drawing, you want to make sure that you are working with just a stroke and no fill. So in order to change those, I can come up here to my control panel, and right here I have a little box that I can activate. So if I hit this arrow key, I can go in here and I can see that I have a bunch of different colors I could use for my stroke. Okay, I can even cross out the stroke, but in this case I'm just going to use black. So make sure you have that activated. And then over here for the fill, I could choose a number of colors to fill in the shape of my objects, but in this case I do not want to fill in the path or the object that I'm making. And then if I hit the letter D for default colors, okay, this is another quick way to get to preparing for drawing. I hit D for default colors, and then I come out here over here and I switch off the fill.